today's video, I imagine a bee. I can count to 3. And I forget where my wrist is. If I move my wrist, then the shoulder doesn't move, but everything underneath that does. Good afternoon, my friends, and today we're looking at one of the best Hytale blogs ever. I mean, it's so good. It's so good, right? And I'm super excited for it if you haven't noticed. But even if you don't plan to use it, it's got such potential for content creators that even you're going to benefit from it, from getting better maps to play. Okay, this is the Hytale Model Maker blog. So the Hytale Model Maker is a browser and app-based modeling, texturing and animation toolkit which comes for free with Hytale. Now this opens such a broad spectrum of possibilities for what we can create as content creators. Now there's no more using testificates or zombies and skeletons when you're actually trying to think of NPCs and enemies. If you can imagine an enemy or a unit, you can make it with the Hytale Model Maker. And this opens just a broad spectrum of things that content creators can use. What will the Hytale Model Maker allow people to do? So first of all, it's a really high-end looking 3D modeling software. Now, a lot of you out there might not have actually used this before, but this looks to be very, very good in that regard. It seems to have all of the essential elements put into one screen, and they're trying to lower the barrier to entry. So people that may not have done this before should be able to get in. I fully expect tutorials on how to model, animate, and texture from content creators like myself to be out there for those that want to learn. Also, people will be running competitions like myself to actually help get other people's content into the game, I'm sure. So, first of all, to make any sort of asset for any game, you need to model the asset into a 3D model. You need to texture it, which means paint it, and then you need to be able to animate it if it needs animating. If it's a sword, you don't need to animate it. If it's a box, you don't need to animate it, although you might need to animate it if it can get destroyed. But if it's a creature, it needs to be able to walk, it needs to run, it needs to jump, it needs to crouch, it needs to die, and stuff like that. Okay, so they're the 3 elements that you're going to have to work on if you want to use the Hytale Model Maker. So the thing about Hytale's modeling is that it's super smart before it's even released. And this is because if you think of any 3D game that you enjoy playing, you know, Subnautica, Fortnite, Dota 2, FIFA, anything that you enjoy playing, think about how easy it would be to create those models. 3D models, a lot of detail on them, moving parts, animating them would be quite difficult. Hytale, it's all made out of blocks. This makes it super easy to model it. In fact, I think a lot of amateur people that have no experience whatsoever, will be able to model Hytale units very extraordinarily easily. Okay, so the modeling side of it, real easy. Again, if we get tutorials on how to do it, it just makes it that much easier. Also, they're going for, you know, intuitive, very easy to use software. It's all on one screen. So I just imagine modeling stuff is going to be real easy. So there are some advanced things that 3D modeling at all will throw up at us, and Hytale hopefully tries to make it very simple and easy to understand for a lot of people. Now, one of these is nodes, also referred to as bones sometimes. It's basically the skeleton that helps us animate certain creatures. For example, if I've got a node there, a node there, and a node is my wrist and my fingers. If I move my shoulder, then the whole lot moves. If I move my wrist, then the shoulder doesn't move, but everything underneath that does. If I move my wrist, then the fingers move, but my elbow doesn't, and fingers. So it's a way of keeping track of the different elements of your particular model and moving them, animating them properly. But there's also other things that it's going to throw at us that we'll have to see what kind of restrictions Hytale or Hypixel is going to implement on us, like level of detail is a term which you'll hear a lot. It means that you can't create a model which is 5,000 blocks big, you know, a big gargantuan thing with loads and loads and loads of blocks. You've got to be efficient when you make 3D models. You've got to make sure you make them, you know, nice, simple designs that work. You can't put 5,000 blocks in there because it will lag the game when you put like 500 creatures within a map. So there are things that they're probably going to have to restrict, and we look forward to seeing those later. We don't have those details yet. So the next thing we've got to do is texture our particular model. Now, again, Hytale, because of the nature of the game, it's made out of cubes. It makes the whole process very easy for a lot of people. In some games, like I've mentioned, Dota, Subnautica, we work with something called UVs for all games. Now, these can get really complicated with really complicated models, but a box is the easiest type of UV to work with. If you think of just a cube and then you expand it so it's just flat, you've got to paint that surface and then rebuild it. And that's what UVs are. But because everything's a block, it becomes super easy to work with. And so that should be no problem. There's going to be a little bit of talent involved on making good shading and good images and utilizing it to create tricks, to make things seem rounded. If we look back at the Scarab's eyes, they look round because they've made the corners dark. So there's going to be some tricks involved, which good content creators will be able to do, but it doesn't really prevent new people getting in, trying it, and then getting better at it, which is just super good, really good. Really good. So the last thing is animation. Now, I do think animation is going to be the hardest thing for a lot of new players that want to create their own units. You do have to think of a lot of stuff, and it becomes very difficult to make a lifelike, really good looking animated creature. You've got to think about center of gravities that don't look like they're going to fall over. You have to think about fluid movement. So when a foot lands, the other foot should be somewhere else. You've got to think about impact to make it seem like it's all really nice and impactful. There's a lot of stuff you've got to think about. Now, you can get around some of this by thinking carefully about what kind of model you want to create. If you create a blob or a slug as your first model, the animation is going to be relatively easy. If you create some sort of towering monstrosity with 100 arms, then suddenly you're going to start to get a bit overwhelmed to begin with. So stick to your easy stuff first, but this is super exciting because I'm not much of an animator, but this looks like it's going to make it extremely easy. Now, if we go back to what we said earlier with the nodes, the bones, the skeleton of your character, this is what you will animate. So if you've got, again, the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and the fingers, they are things that you will have to animate. So you'll have to animate the shoulder into the right position, and then you'll have to animate the elbow into the right position, then the wrist into the right position, and stuff like that. Now, remember, it works on sort of a list or a hierarchy. So if I move the shoulder, then the whole hand moves. And this allows us to just animate a little bit easier. We're going to be using keyframes, which means at the start of the animation, I want the hand to be there, and then at the end of the animation, I want it to be there. And then, say you want to do that over 10 seconds, the character will slowly do that over 10 seconds. So there are tricks, and again, tutorials will help with this so much, but it looks to be so cool. We've seen the zombie here who's doing it, and you can see how he's moving each particular arm separately and moving them into the position, saving the particular keyframe at a certain time. Again, we probably can't have overly long animations, but you also will need to have a lot of animations. This probably will take the longest amount of work. You need to, again, do it for when it's dying, when it's living, when it's standing still, when it's attacking, when it's jumping, when it's crouching, when it's swimming, and you've got to do all this. So this will definitely take the most amount of time. So this blog post then goes on to the modular design of characters, and this is just a really nice quality of life. So modular means piece by piece. So any game you can think of where you would equip pieces of armor, this is a modular design. So instead of creating like 10 different zombies and you have to model each zombie, you just create one base zombie, which they've done here, and then equip different types of headpieces, different types of armor. So, you know, you would have to animate if they do different attacks, but you can have, you know, 5 different looking zombies that will attack the same way. And this is just a really cool way of saving a bit of time, but also adding depth to your game. So not every zombie looks the same, which is super cool. Now, I just talked for, you know, however long it was, about modeling, texturing, animating, and how difficult some of those can be and how new people will have to get better. However, they've implemented real-time collaboration, which means you can actually build a community or get some friends. One of you might be a really good texturer, one might be a really good modeler, and one might be a really good animator. And you can work together to make a model. Now, this is really good because my weakness is animation. I can model something really well, I can texture it really well, but animation is not something I'm good at. I'd love to learn, but this system allows you to actually work with someone else real time. This is so good. Like, did I not tell you this blog post was just crazy good? And again, these are both downloadable apps or through the web browser. I think you have to use the web browser as well. And it's completely free. this is exactly what you want. And to recap what we said at the beginning, now you've seen it all, just imagine that you're trying to build your own story, right? Your own level, and you wanted a certain creature in your level, and that's not in Hytale at the minute. You know, Minecraft is a great example of this, where people create custom maps and they struggle to actually create unique, interesting monsters or NPCs. They reskin them and try and make them look different, put a mod pack on, make them look different. So it's when you go into that custom map, the player feels like it's something different. In Hytale, you can actually do that. Hytale is just the platform. We can play through the single player and enjoy it, and then when custom maps come out, you can expect that to be 10 times better, with a lot of different creatures, different models, different attack patterns, you know, different cinematics. Oh, it's going to be so good, and I am in love with this Hytale model maker. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like the video if you want. You know, subscribe for more Hytale content, because you know I'll be doing it. And thank you again for watching, my friends. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you again next time.